Welcome to the WitchFoot Podcast. This is episode 21. Kind of cool. We did 20 already. We're tired and it's been a strange time. And so for anyone out there who's listening, who is also feeling just the intense exhaustion and strangeness of the moment, we're still in a retrograde. The South Node right now is going to be in Scorpio for some time, while the North Node remains in Taurus. So that's about an 18-month cycle that before it switches to Aries and Libra, because it's always going retrograde. It's always moving backwards. And we've just been kind of talking amongst ourselves about what that looks like right now. We are recording and coming to you from the United States. So that's our cultural soup. What a soup. And just kind of reeling from everything happening. And I think it's taking like a bodily toll is what it's feeling like. And we're heartened by the South Node and the North Node being where they are at their best. The North Node in Taurus and the hungriness for Taurus energy is a hunger for sustainable simplicity. That's what Taurus is reaching for at the end of the day. It's associated with a lot of materialism, but Taurus's gift to all of us is knowing just how little it takes to lead a beautiful life. And then we've got the South Node representing kind of a shedding point, but it's a shedding point because it's the energy that we have in abundance already that we're most comfortable with. And when we look at Scorpio and think about what it would mean to have a comfort level with Scorpio, which I'm not really certain we do culturally here or abroad, feel free to weigh in and let us know if you feel like your culture is especially Scorpio friendly. But right now it's feeling like the Scorpio energy is asking us all to hold on tight to the layers of information being revealed about how we're conducting ourselves in society, where power is and where it's being funneled, and to not let go. The news cycle has a short attention span, and we have short attention spans owing mostly to the overwhelm, the tiredness, the delight in being able to move on from something that sucks. So I don't blame people for not wanting to hang with it, but there's certain levels of information about our society that are just being drudged up. And in some cases, this information has been here for a while. It's just not been centralized in the public eye. So now we're getting this centering around this information. And I think a South Node in Scorpio is saying, don't let go until we've unearthed every dirty truth. Hold on tight.
Yeah, and I think the question of whether it is about these current events like a school shooting, or it's about more personal issues or current events that are a little bit more lighthearted, not so devastating. The question you always hear is, why can't we get this right? Why does this keep happening? Why are things the way they are? And the reason I think we keep coming up to that question is not because there aren't good individual answers, but because the solution is a lot deeper than we're willing to look all the time. It's not as simple as a simple gun law or redoing mental health or how we handle police and criminal justice in our country. There are greater societal, community-based, interpersonal issues in the way that our country operates, in the way that we talk to each other, in the things that we prioritize and glorify or don't, the way that our religions operate, the things that we value, our value systems, and the things that we think will bring us security, the things that we seek for security, which are also very Taurus and Scorpio related. So just like with any transit, even when it's painful, it's ultimately working towards your good. Even when it's a lesson you don't want to learn, even when it hurts you, there's ultimately something in there that's moving you to discover something about yourself or to do to make the situation better for yourself or someone you care about. So I guess we're not saying that there is any good answer or that there is any one thing you should do, other than instead of immediately transmuting whatever feelings you're going through about whatever the thing is, instead of immediately turning that into anger against a person, a group, a movement, a situation, or feeling the urge to do something, sit with it. Sit with it in yourself and uncover it for yourself. I think it's also important to point out that Jupiter is still in Aries. That's the for a year about, and it's very big energy. Jupiter is big energy, Aries is big energy. This is not anything to just fuck around casually with, in conjunction with another Mars ruled experience of the South Node in Scorpio. So don't take this for granted. Don't take it lightly. This is a learning experience. We will get through it, but it is going to require some soul searching. I think we're all here and able to rise to the task. But it's been painful. I'm sitting here with my phone at my side, waiting for notifications from my children's school because I'm nervous. It's like the last few days of their school year. On the other hand, I'm waiting for notifications about a verdict in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. It's 2022. The world is crazy. We are in it. And I think it's fair that we all feel a little insane about that. I think that's bad bitches can be sad bitches and crazy bitches and everything else. So hugs. Everybody hugs.
Actually, I just saw this on TikTok, so I'll share. If you're not on the YouTube version, I'm just like kind of taking my hands and grabbing my arms up and down my arms. It's a good way of reminding your body that you have boundaries. And for me, what that does as an earth light person is it reminds me that everything that's happening is happening. It's still happening, but I'm right here. And I am physically right now in this moment okay. And sometimes that's a really good calming technique. This stuff sucks. We're feeling it too.
We're feeling it. One of our coping mechanisms that we have always used since the beginning of our friendship in our teenage years was actually horror movies. It seems like not what you would want to do when you're going through traumatizing situations or really intense emotions is let's watch people die or be murdered or whatever. But it really helps. It is a very healthy way to process your very big feelings. And so whatever you do to cope with your big feelings is wonderful. We're not going to judge you, like what you like. We like horror movies. Don't judge us. We don't care, but like also don't. Rude. But if you are into horror movies, we wanted to share some recommendations with you. If you are not into horror movies, we ask that you maybe give these a chance, at least listen, see if any of it piques your interest. These are going to be suggestions that we listed in a very early episode, maybe the first episode, like our top 5 list that we wanted to share with listeners, but we really glossed right over it. And it just seems like we need to take this gift back out of the archives and share it with everyone when we just, there needs to be a little bit of pleasure and joy mixed in with all this heaviness. So this is our gift to everyone. WitchFoot's horror movie recommendations.
A word about how the movies were chosen. So I'll start. I chose my 5 based on the corners of the horror universe that I felt like they represented. So they're not necessarily the ones that I've watched over and over again. Some are. But I was trying to represent as many aspects of the horror universe, which is vast as most genres are, as I could in a single list to give you like the topography of horror. So that's my list.
Yeah. I tried to be as broad as possible. I wanted like what are 5 movies I could pick that I'll feel really great about 40 years from now as I do today. So I tried to make it very exhaustive. big hitters. Andrea's list is a little bit cooler. So if you want to be like if you're looking for like movies that will give you more street cred, Andrea's list. If you want a list that's going to impress like a film professor or something, my list. That's what we're dealing with here. So there's your first vibe check. I'll start with my first movie. I think this is a great film. I recommend this too for people who are just not into horror movies in general, because I think it's a fun action movie in addition to a horror movie. It's The Thing with Kurt Russell. I can't believe we didn't even write the years down in our notes, but I'm going to take a wild guess. I think this one came out in 1980. The special effects were incredible. It's based on an H.P. Lovecraft story. It's this unnameable alien creature thing that morphs into other people. So it sort of has these elements of who can you really trust, but then it has these insane, super thrilling creature effects that are just some of the best that you've ever seen from an era of horror films when they used all practical effects, no CGI. This is one that I'm actually dying to show my kids, but I just, because it's not as necessarily, it's so fun that like if you're a kid watching it, it's one of the more fun horror movies that you could get your hands on. However, it could possibly give you nightmares.
It's so good. It's such solid monster horror. I just read a list of the top 20 monsters in horror of all time, and The Thing was number one. It's so good.
It's excellent. Kurt Russell's excellent. John Carpenter did this several years after Halloween. He does have a little reference. Now, he didn't know at the time. In Halloween, they play The Thing from Outer Space, which is the original film iteration of the H.P. Lovecraft story. And then John Carpenter went on to make the movie. He went on to do other amazing action movies as well, but this was an opus. Essential horror viewing. That's what this is.
You love it for the monsters and the paranoia. Can't be beat. Yeah. And then my first on the list was Tonight She Comes, which we did an entire episode about because we're so cool like that. So if you haven't heard that episode, we'll link it in the show notes. Tonight She Comes is really about subverting what you expect from women in horror, because we have final girls, we have roles for women in horror, and they've been undermined in other ways. Jamie Lee Curtis undermines these roles in her films. Like, there are other ways that we've kind of subverted these. You're Next is another great one. I love Tonight She Comes because it's a bold movie. You'll know why we say that if you listen to the other episode, but the way that they use period blood, the way that they ritualize this moment of birthing and rebirth, it's good, messy fun. And I wouldn't say it's like the plot that's going to like knock you, like make you rethink like, who am I and why am I here? But it's so much joy for women who have for so long been running upstairs in heels from the bad guy. You can't beat it for its ability to reframe that conversation. It's definitely for people who can handle the sight of blood, although we are talking horror here, so I'm kind of assuming. But I would say, actually similar to the next movie we're going to be talking about, that women will get something special from Tonight She Comes.
Yeah, and it's a horror comedy, so that's also a little bit different. Some people want to be extremely scared, so I don't think Tonight She Comes, the scares are in the graphic, shocking nature of what you're seeing and the discomfort that you feel in the subversion that they're playing with, the subversion of male and female stereotypes, the things that you're seeing and the unsettling nature of the plot as it develops, the horrors and the discomfort and unease that you're feeling, not necessarily super scary shit that's happening like in The Thing. It's not nearly as menacing and tense. And then you do have these breaks of very comedic moments, but the style of comedy is not obvious. It's not subtle, but it's deadpan. Like, you have to kind of be in on the joke and playing along with it in order to find it humorous as well. So definitely not for everyone, only the cool people.
Hope people approved.
Midsommar is our next movie on the list. Now, this is on my list, but I think totally.
It's only not on my list because it was already on her. It's so good.
Exactly.
This movie changed our lives.
That's not an understatement. I think this was the first time in a movie where I saw a female character portrayed that was relatable in a very deep, like, I learned something about myself that I didn't know. Holy shit. And then to realize that it was, well, I knew going in, but it was a male director doing that blew my mind. I didn't think that was possible until it happened. I think my favorite memory from watching this movie was when Andrea and I went to see it, because I think I saw it 3 times. The second time was with you. The third time was when I saw the director's cut, which I don't recommend.
I don't either. I saw that with the hubs.
But yeah, the second time with you was when during the one sex scene in the whole film, which we as women interpret as like, wow, it would be really nice if your first time really happened in such a supportive environment like that. Like, I don't know if I want it just like that, to be clear, but like, what a supportive experience versus the scary shit that I went through. And mine wasn't even that bad. And the guys in the audience who were like scared, laughing, upset, like wigged out, that and like online seeing the reviews of that was like the issue point for so many men, and just to realize the different experience you had depending on which character you related to. It cemented in my mind that Ari Aster is a genius, and I am still dying to see his next movie.
Yes, same. Yeah, I can't say enough about Midsommar. Danny, played by Florence Pugh, does such an amazing job of conveying the very real cultural moment that women are having in their relationships right now. And so Ari Aster actually called this in publicity pre-release a breakup movie. So if you want to think about it that way, there's theories online that it's a dreamscape movie. There's lots of different ways you can take the content, but what a subversive ending. What a great movie.
What a great movie. Again, only for the cool people. It is. No, I shouldn't say that. It's not only for the cool people. It's long. It is a little bit slow. It's dramatic. It's subtle. But if you appreciate, I think this is another one of those movies where you don't have to be a fan of horror to love it. If you appreciate film as a craft in general, as a form of art, Midsommar is going to strike a chord with you, regardless if you like horror or not. So, but if you don't like artsy movies, well,
fair enough. Fair enough. Although, having said, I'm not normally an indie artsy movie person, and it really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
So we paired that, or we're thinking about that in the same oeuvre as my next movie, which is The House of the Devil, which I just rewatched. Very satisfying. I think it's always fun when you have an entire movie take place in such a small space. Now, it does open outside of the house, but the majority of the film is played inside of this home where the main character is babysitting. And then it just rolls from there. And you've got this mounting tension. It's another slow build type of movie. And I just had no idea how exactly it was going to leave us. This is for fans of cults. This very much plays on all of the devil worshiping fears that everybody had, the satanic panic type stuff that was alive and well within our lifetime. The other thing it does really well, Ty West, he takes the entire film back to what, like 70s era, like film style. Yeah, it's gorgeous. So just to look at and just to realize that it was very recently made, and just like the quality that was imbued into it to make it really feel like an older movie, it was just phenomenal. Slow burn, but like the unease. Actresses in it are amazing. I know, Wendy, you're a huge fan of
Greta Gerwig. She's so good in this. She steals the show for me. Even though she's not the main character, she steals it for me. And you're right. I think this movie came out, oh my God, I want to say like around 2009. Like before you had a ton of movies doing the 80s nostalgia type setting, before Stranger Things,
Before
okay?
Stranger Things, before It Follows,
Yes.
before, yeah.
So it wasn't even just that he set it in that time period, but it wasn't like for example, Fear Street, the Fear Street trilogy that they did on Netflix. That was great period stuff, but it didn't feel like it was filmed in that time period. And a lot of times movies set in those time periods, they use constant needle drops to just tell you that we're in that time period. But it's like, no, I get it. I know what was on the radio then. Give me what it really felt like to be there, not just the soundtrack. This was so refreshing when it came out. Like it felt like you found a tape from the 80s and put it in your VCR.
I was about to say it's not over the top gory for most of it.
It has a hell of a third act.
It sure does.
Next up, okay, we're going to keep with the theme of women and female-led horror movies, but that were also directed by men because that's still the thing. Suspiria. So this one is from 1977, directed by Dario Argento. I'm not alone in my opinion that this is a fantastic film. I am not in the popular opinion that it's super highly watchable. So I will give you that. I personally love it. I discovered it when I was a teenager, when I was trying to like really get into horror, and I first started learning about giallos, which are, the Italian horror films of the 70s and 80s. And this was like, oh, if you're going to get into giallo, you need to see Suspiria. Like that's step one. I love film as an art form. This is a masterpiece of color, the technology of camera that and coloring and lighting that Dario Argento was using. This is, I believe, the last film to be using it. So if you're a cinephile, you should watch it for that reason alone. The remake that they did with what's her name? Is her name Dakota Fanning? Is that her name? 50 Shades of Grey lady? Ooh.
So bad at this game.
The girl that was in 50 Shades of Grey, she played the main character in the Suspiria remake that Amazon produced. That was very good.
Mm-hmm.
Very different movie, very different tone, aesthetic. It's different. Still very good. This is the one you should watch if you really want to get a sense of the witchiness, the coolness, and like if nothing else, go listen to the fucking soundtrack. Go listen to Goblin. For Christmas a few years ago, my husband and I went to see Goblin perform the soundtrack to Suspiria while the film played, and it was so cool. I can't even describe it. It was so cool. So yeah, it's musically, visually, it's a work of art. Go see it. Suspiria.
Oh my God. Yeah. I actually only hung in there for the remake, so I feel like such a poser being on this podcast episode about horror. I will honor that in general, I struggle with older film. I'm going to do my best and try harder. I love the remake just for the uniqueness alone, because any genre can get repetitive.
The remake does a much better job at pulling out the plot themes and dealing with, so the themes in this have to deal with witchcraft, and Tilda Swinton in the remake was incredible. She knocked my socks off. Like, I don't know that I'd trade her for Goblin, right? Like I still prefer my OG Suspiria. Yeah, I agree. The plot elements in the remake are stronger. So thematically it's a better film, but visually, art-wise, for the impact that it had. It's Suspiria. It's like one of those movies too where you watch at such an age and it has such an impression on you that it becomes like comfort food. And it's like that for me. As fucked up as it sounds.
No, I have my comfort food horror movies. The one I'm about to talk about is not one of them. But I have them. Yellow Brick Road. So no is Yellow Brick Road. All I know. The reason this made the list is because I had to pay tribute to a movie that unsettled me so deeply that I actually ended up performing a ceremony to release the film from my consciousness.
Yes. Yes.
Too, because it had such a hold over me. It scared me so much that at one point, my husband, very sick of hearing about like how horrifying this movie that he hasn't seen was like, well, I'll just go watch it. And I was like, when? And he was like, right now, you're going to bed. And I was like, it can't be playing. I'm trying to sleep. And he was like, in a different room, I'll be watching. And I was like, unacceptable. You'll have to find a time when I'm away. Just like the energy of the film. The way you can scare me the most in horror is by taking away the character's ability to know what's good for them. So kind of like a slow build of psychosis, unreliable narrator, anything like that really gets under my skin when people start actively making choices that hurt them and others. And when Yellow Brick Road first, it's this group of people, they're traveling and they're trying to uncover the source behind this other group of people who had traveled the same road and disappeared. And so they're trying to get to the bottom of it. It's film crew style. It's not shaky cam, but it's post Blair Witch. So we're kind of like in the oeuvre of people like walking through the woods and doing stuff and trying to unearth something.
Little found footagey.
Yes, exactly. When it first starts to all break down, it's actually a long shot and you're very far from the moment that's happening. And you're so grateful to be that far.
I'd be grateful if you didn't describe it anymore.
It scared me beyond. So that's Yellow Brick Road. I do not recommend it. I had to mention it for its... Very few horror movies have gotten under my skin the way Yellow Brick Road got under my skin. And that's something. And it didn't do it because of anything cheap, which is, it's not Saw. Sorry, Saw fans. It's not Saw.
I think too, I like the way you describe the type of movies that really get under your skin. Very Edgar Allan Poe of you.
Yes. His stories twist the knife too. Mm-hmm.
I think too, Yellow Brick Road, I was immediately hooked into it. The setup of films like this, like, oh, this other film crew went there, or these investigators went there and we've never heard from them again. So now we're suiting up and we're going in. I'm just like, oh, I'm in. It got its hooks into me right away and I had to watch it. Found footage and that style of like, this is the last tape that we've ever seen. So now like I have to put on my investigator glasses and watch a film that way. Ooh, you got me. Like I'm in it. But you're right. This one was hella disturbing. But I don't think it even fully bothered me until you get to the last, like the final scenes of the movie. There's no resolution. And now you feel insane. Like trying to process what you've just watched. You're like, it took me right back to like, I was way too young when I saw The Exorcist, right? Like 9 years old. And like, I finished the movie and I'm like, am I now possessed? Or when you watch The Ring and you finish the movie and you're like, am I going to die in 7 days? Yellow Brick Road is that kind of movie. Did I just lose my mind? And like, shit's going to start happening. It's that kind of movie. It fucks with you.
Highly, highly unsettling. But if you can hang, it's a wild ride. And I love people who push the boundaries of what is possible. And it pushed me. And I don't think I've seen it since. But but good job, the people who made Yellow Brick Road.
I may try.
I would give it a go. I would give it another go. I've done my ceremony, so we're cool.
It's not just that, like, if you just watch clips of, like the violence or the gory parts or like the scary parts, like the clips by themselves would not bother you. It's weaving the whole thing together as you slowly lose your mind.
It's the insanity building, and that's actually very much like Lovecraftian. What I love about movies like The Yellow Brick Road is when the environment has an impact on you, and the environment is actually, because what can you do about that? I mean, you can leave, but it's like it's a much larger issue to deal with than like a single man with an axe. Like if the environment is fucking with you, it's like, it's alarming. There's so many movies in my horror catalog that deal with this, and this is the one that unsettled me the most.
Yeah, and I do remember that being unwatchable, Yellow Brick Road. Like, you wouldn't even talk to me about it for a
Yeah.
little while after we watched it. Like, because I was like, well, let's try to watch it again, and then like we'll feel better. And you're like, no, that's a hard no. I had a movie, so this one's not on my list. This would be a movie like proceed with caution, i.e., don't fucking watch this if you're not like nerves of steel. I have two movies now that are hard for me. One is Hell House LLC. I understand I'm a big baby, but
So good.
it's so scary. It's found footage again. Found footage is frightening because you cannot trust the camera. You don't know where stuff is going to pop out, what's going to happen, what you can and cannot see. And for whatever reason, Hell House LLC just it's fucking scary, dude. It's scary. If you think you cannot be scared by found footage horror movies, watch Hell House LLC. I dare you. Then tell me you weren't scared. Bet. My other one is Banshee.
I just recommend it. Sorry. I just like that's why I'm not saying anything. I think it's a really good movie. So if you like haunted houses and you like and you like found footage, Hell House does an amazing job. There's like 3 more after that. They're all kind of funny and worth watching for the laughs, but Hell House, the first one, so good.
It will scare the shit out of you though.
Yeah.
If be forewarned. Banshee chapter I have tried to rewatch. I purchased it so that I could force myself to rewatch it. No excuses. I still can't do it. Banshee chapter, it incorporates, you should watch it. If you can handle it, you should try to watch it. It incorporates numbers stations, which is a super scary, like undercover shit from World War II. It incorporates H.P. Lovecraft stories. It incorporates Hunter S. Thompson. This movie has it all, you guys.
MK Ultra.
Oh my god, MK Ultra! How did I forget about the scariest part of the whole fucking movie? Was the MK Ultra shit. Like, you should watch this just to educate yourself on all of these topics. But also, I tap out. Like, before the opening sequence is even complete, I tap out. Only one time I watched this to completion. I've never had nightmares. I can't. It's too much.
Sounds like we need a Yellow Brick Road Banshee chapter Lady Day.
Sounds like I don't think I can handle that. I don't think so. Wendy wouldn't make it to the end of that date. That's what would happen. Are we too scared to go on?
No.
Our other movies aren't that bad. Okay.
They aren't.
Okay. No, this one's great. My next up is my ultimate comfort food movie because it's the first horror movie I ever remember seeing. A Nightmare on Elm Street. The original 1984, yes, with the cutie pie Johnny Depp when he was still trying to be a musician. It's terrifying. It's epic. It's Wes Craven, one of the best, most fucked up horror movie directors of all time. My favorite thing about Wes Craven is he didn't see horror movies until he went to college. He was raised in a super religious household. And then he gave us movies like Scream and Last House on the Left and Nightmare on Elm Street. So it's a little lesson in overprotecting your kids, FYI. I don't think I have to say much. Everybody knows Freddy Krueger. Everybody knows these films. If you really, truly haven't seen this, why? Just go see it. It's part of your culture and heritage. If you're an American, go see Nightmare on Elm Street because you should. Period.
For no reason other than the laughs. Sometimes if Ben and I are dealing with a frustrating situation, we'll say it like Freddie would say it. Like if we got back from the DMV and we didn't have all the stuff we needed, we'll be like, "You need 3 forms of ID, bitch." Just a little more Freddie in your life.
The sequels are so funny. Robert Englund is a gift to our culture. The sequels are incredible. The second one is definitely a cautionary tale about repressing your sexuality. It's a must watch. It's a must watch. I've never used the Freddy voice, but occasionally for good behavior out of my kids, I do sing the 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. So,
We can't forget about your usually silent and absent co-host, Freddie.
Oh my God. My cat is Freddy Cougar. Yeah, of course. It's not super original, but listen, he looks like a Freddy. I haven't bought him the outfit for Halloween because he's a cat, guys. And he's a normal cat. He's not one of those weird cats that tolerate shit. We're moving on. We're coping with horror.
Grave Encounters is my next movie. This is a comfort food movie for me. I could watch this breakfast, lunch, and dinner and still be glad that I was watching it the third time that day. I love this movie. This movie has the environment fucking with you. This movie has like the slow elimination of characters, right? Like the group gets smaller and smaller. So the setup is this film crew and they're going to film inside this abandoned asylum. And it's a tongue-in-cheek type of production. Like they're not really serious about the location. They're not believers. They just are trying to cash in on this trend and the horror trend. And so they go, and it's all schemed, right? They're locked in, they can't leave, but they're taking all of this with a grain of salt. So they do their whole setup, and pretty much as they're done wrapping up, they're like putting the cameras where the cameras need to be, getting the lights where the lights need to be. Shit starts to go down. It's not a slow burn at all. If you love asylum horror, if you love the environment fucking with people, one of my favorite books to this effect, where like the environment keeps changing as people try to figure it out, is House of Leaves. So if you like horror and not quite knowing what's going on and environments messing with people, can't recommend it enough. The Grave Encounters, it's so rich. It's got monsters. It's got like the internal demons and people like preying on people's fears, and just you get the sense that if the characters could just breathe and calm down, that part of the power of the place is that feeding off of their fear, but they just can't settle into what's happening all around them. And I just, in every single way, that's horror comfort food for me. I could watch that for the rest of my life. Love it.
Also found footage.
Yes.
But more professionally done, a la Yellow Brick Road. I think too, if I am not incorrect on this, I think when we saw it, I pointed out to you that they were making fun of Zach Bagans of Ghost Adventures fame, which caused me to reveal to you my secret love of Zach Bagans and Ghost Adventures, which persists to this day. It's not such a secret. I'm open about it now. I'm not ashamed. I love what I love. And I think Zach Bagans is for real. I don't think he's bullshitting people. But yeah, this is, you line up like the old Ghost Adventures intro and then the intro that they do in this movie, and it like they're clearly mocking Ghost Adventure, but like it's perfect. I'm not sure how Ghost Adventures crew would feel about this movie, but I love it.
Very satisfying. I mean, you don't want to get to the end of a ghostly encounter and not have seen anything. You see stuff in Grave Encounters.
You do.
Can't recommend it enough. And I know I've watched the second one, and I think like all sequels, it doesn't meet the level of the first one, but I remember enjoying it. So if you end up watching Grave Encounters and you enjoy it, there is a second one.
Yeah. That brings us to the top movie for both of us. Well, I don't know. Do we make this number one, or this is just a both for us? It's one-ish.
Foundational horror. Like when I think of like cradling myself as a young horror babe, like this movie.
Yeah. It's The Shining, guys. I mean, that should be obvious. Like, we're students of film. We love horror. We love complicated things. We love intelligent things. So we love The Shining. I didn't bring it with, I should have just brought it for the podcast. I have what amounts to like a textbook on The Shining, like essays about the themes of the movie, interviews with the cast and crew. It's amazing. It costs too much money, but whatever, treat yourself. I love it. I can't talk about the movie enough. I can't see it enough times. There's not enough documentaries about this amazing movie. And I think this is the one. Like, I don't care if you don't like horror movies. If you like film at all, you must also watch The Shining, period.
Yes. And we're talking here, of course, about Jack Nicholson in The Shining. There was a remake not long after the original. Like, I feel like within a short window of time, the remake.
TV miniseries. Yeah.
It's an exquisite movie. The tension builds excellently. The dialogues are so creepy. Ben and I still make horrific jokes about our son being a willful boy. Like, just so much good fodder. Such a good movie.
We do the, of course, since my name is Wendy, we do the Wendy darling. Just want to bash your fucking brains in. But it's in love and jest. There's so many controversies with this. There's a controversy over, the movie versus the book, and Stephen King's feelings that the movie didn't live up to the book. And like, yeah, it's different, but like, also you made so much money as well, and everybody knows the book too, and if they want to read it they can, and it's also good, and you made so many other books. Let Stanley Kubrick have a horror movie. Let Jack Nicholson have his horror movie. Let Shelley Duvall have her horror movie without having to have Stephen King didn't like it. Then there's all the controversy with Stanley Kubrick being like too difficult of a director, and it's like, okay, but everybody got paid. I wouldn't know who Shelley Duvall is if it wasn't for this movie. And like, she was excellent. She's iconic. Everyone in it is iconic. It's an iconic film, and I'm just happy that it exists. And I can't make it perfect in retrospect, but like, it exists, and I'm grateful for that.
If you've seen Shining, but you've never bothered to go down the winding road of the visual tricks implemented by Stanley Kubrick, of like all the, not misdirection, but unease built into the visual craft of the film, highly recommend that you like just do some Googling on it. It's so satisfying to like rewatch, knowing that there's all of these things happening, subtle, small things that just in your mind, which is so linear and rational and following along, just help to build the tension as the movie rolls on. It's just
legend.
Me and my husband watched this on a tiny television set across the room on our honeymoon because it was the only thing we could find that, like, we were scrolling through. I was like, is that Jack Nick? Is this The Shining? And he was like, do you really want to? And I was like, yes. And we watched The Shining on our honeymoon. So good.
This is probably terrible to say because I don't love all the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp memes, but I will say I chuckled at this one, and it was a Shining meme where they have Amber Heard's face over Jack Nicholson with the axe, and then Johnny over Wendy, Shelley Duvall, and she, as she's doing the axe, she's saying, "You hit me," as she's breaking down the door. It's probably really inappropriate. We don't know their lives really, but like, it did make me laugh. And to Andrea's point, The Shining, what is this now, 42 years later, still relevant, guys. I still see movie openings that use the same exact fucking bird's eye tracking the car up the side of a mountain sequence that Stanley Kubrick used 42 fucking years ago. If you watch movies, you should watch his movie just to see how many movies try to use shit from The Shining, because it was that good. It was foundational, period. So those were top 5 individually, together, WitchFoot's recommendations to help you cope with your feelings, to help you process feelings, are loving recommendations to you. Outside of those, and we threw in a bunch of other cool ones too. So you have lots of recommendations to go with, but as if that wasn't enough, we're going to give you even more. We have a couple additional movies that if you're not, again, really big into horror in general, but maybe you're into action movies or dramatic plot lines, I personally recommend a film called The Descent, about a group of spelunkers who get into a cave and it doesn't end well. So I think it's kind of, for me, the horror is primarily the fact that most of it takes place in a very claustrophobic environment. but it has like really dramatic, the relationships between the characters, I think, are the primary driver in the film, and the horror just gets worse and worse. But like the way that it culminates, I think, is actually very satisfying. How it breaks the tension of being stuck down in the cave. It's a great movie. It's very scary, but not in necessarily the terrifying, graphic, jump scare, traditional horror types of ways.
It can't be beat. I love The Descent. That's another comfort food movie for me, and about as close as you will ever get Wendy and I to survival horror.
Or in a cave.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, right, where like the actual, like, yeah, they're going out, they're adventurers, right? They're risking life and limb for this cave expedition, and then stuff happens.
You won't catch me in a cave. No.
Wiggling through the tight spots.
Fuck that. I read stories. I read the news. I know what happens. Those people die horrifically every time. Not every time, but enough times for me to know that I'm not putting my ass in there.
My final plug for The Descent: the actresses were not aware of precisely when the action would hit, and it shows. Anyway.
Yes. Those poor ladies.
Those poor brave I mean, they signed on to a movie where they did poor brave ladies.
Yeah. Monster movies in general, I think, are always hits with us. The Descent eventually becomes a monster movie, but that's not what it starts out as.
It doesn't start out that way. I would also recommend, if we're talking monster movies, I think it's called either Monster or The Monster, about a mother and daughter. And if you can find that movie streaming somewhere, we'll link it. Just a super great exploration of relationship. It's a tricky relationship that they have, complicated by a monster. So highly recommend that film. And then the next one in our subgenre, I don't know what the subgenre name for this would be. Existential horror. There's some movies, same creators, Resolution and The Endless, that play with themes of like, what is all this? They break the fourth wall. They're playing with the audience as they're playing with the characters. They have very meta themes. Oh, what's the other one that's very similar to this, about the eclipse and the dinner party? Oh, if I can't think of it, I'll put it in the
Guest or The Invitation.
We're so close.
Yes.
It's very, so I will find it and put it in the show notes. But anything that plays with these kind of themes of the permeability of life and how fragile and thin our reality really is, and how quickly it dissolves into something else. And they're both really good explorations of just these kind of wild ideas. So if that piques your interest, I highly recommend them. And I don't think that they are horror movies in like the heart thumping, like, oh my God, like you're not going to be scared witless by either of these movies. So if you're looking for a gentle entrance and you like those themes, you like those existential questions, I think those are really good movies.
Yeah, you're not going to find the gore, blood, splatter, jump scares. These are devoid of that. Mm-hmm. If you want all of those elements, which I love, I go for, I'm a really big fan, honestly, of slashers. I am. But I think it's because so many slashers, they are formulaic. So they are a little bit kind of that comfort food of horror. You know what to expect. And then they also bleed into comedy horror. And I love comedy horror. Again, more comfort food. Because you're processing really big, complicated emotions every single day. And being able to have a movie that presents you with both the light and the dark simultaneously, like that's what it's about. And it seems like comedy and horror should not go together, but in me they do. I think in people in life they do. In the face of tragedy, like how do you move on with your life? We can't just be upset all the time.
The best comedians are smart, intelligent, well-read, well-thought people, because they're the reason their comedy hits so hard is because they're pinpointing a pressure point in society. They're pinpointing that. And what horror does so expertly, when done well, is the same thing. It presses on these pressure points. It takes a situation that's kind of unfolding in the public eye and says, well, let's just take it to 11 and see what happens then. So they can be very prophetic if they're done well. And so I think the horror comedy pairing is perfect.
Perfection. With the slashers, that can be a very broad category too. It doesn't have to be home invasion or guy with a knife, which can make a lot of people very uncomfortable because it's close to reality. It can be ridiculous stuff, more like Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street. And since we mentioned him, I would be remiss to not say I actually prefer, even though Nightmare on Elm Street makes my top 5, as far as those kind of iconic serial characters, Chucky and Jason are my guys. Little known fact about Wendy and her clan at Christmas time is Christmas Eve when we're wrapping the presents for the kids. We have a Friday the 13th marathon. It's different movies every year, but this is how we do Christmas Eve, okay? We drink beer and we watch Friday the 13th, all right? It's fun. You should try it. And Chucky, he's another one that came in very early in my life. We've had a more complicated relationship, me and Chucky. He's fucking terrifying. And when you're a little tiny girl who has dolls, and then you watch a movie when you're that little tiny girl about a killer doll, you don't like dolls anymore. The world is very scary. I probably shouldn't have seen it when it came out, but I did, and here we are. There was a long period of time where I could not view Chucky without panicking and leaving the room. Now I've rewatched all the movies several times. I think he's fucking hilarious. Bride of Chucky is my favorite movie, and the new series that they just came out with was really good. And I think the remake was excellent. So if you're one of those people who hates why are they remaking old horror movies? It's so unnecessary. I give you Chucky. I give you the rebuttal of the Chucky films and franchise in general. They're doing it right. So there's my pitch so that Chucky doesn't get mad at me and kill me in my sleep because I talked more about other people. So because the fear is still there.
Yeah, I was never dolls in general freak me out. Even when I was a girl and I was supposed to be into dolls, I was like, oh, you mean tiny lifeless recreations of us? No, thank you.
Oh, fuck with that uncanny valley. Thanks, though.
No, I was like, what's the word for that? Uncanny valley. Yes. No, thank you.
Yeah, and I guess the only other thing is I have a lot of people. So I have John Carpenter on the list. I have Wes Craven. I have Stanley Kubrick, all these heavy hitter directors. I don't have a Dave Cronenberg movie on the list. He is the king of body horror. He's an acquired taste. I love body horror. This is not to get confused with torture porn. They are different things. Eli Roth, you're fucked up. What's wrong with you?
I mean, Cabin Fever, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And then why?
Then Hostel, why? Why does Saw exist? If you like it, like what you like. I'm just glad that you're enjoying horror and keeping the genre alive, but I'll pass.
True story. My mother-in-law, as my husband and I were planning our honeymoon, have you seen Hostel? And I was like, so that's not a true story.
Not. There is, though. You know what? It's something 12. I just started hearing about this and it's too freaky and convoluted. I haven't looked into it yet. On the Appalachian Trail, there's this religious group. They have hostels along the Appalachian Trail. It's more, I think, New York based. But when you're at the hostel, they're like, oh, do you want to stay a little bit and come to church service and whatever? So they try to recruit people, hikers on the Appalachian Trail, to their church. And it's the 12 something, 12, and they have stores also, or not store, delis. They have delis. The Yellow Deli. Oh my God. I'm going to put links in the show notes so that everybody can be aware.
Well, and while we're on this hiking and based on true things, this is not in our notes, so I'm just riffing now. But Wendy, what is that movie about? What really happened to that Russian expedition? Who was because that was such a good movie.
Okay, the Dyatlov Pass.
Yes.
Okay. Which, all right, if we're getting into this territory, I have to say, because we mentioned it, I do believe the theory about the Dyatlov Pass incident being caused by something with the environmental, the sound waves and acoustics and things like that. I think that's a solid theory. But there is that movie. Okay, I'm writing more show notes. Dyatlov Pass. I can't remember the name of that film, but it will be in the show notes because that was definitely a ridiculous theory for how those people died, but it was very scary.
Very scary and based on real events, like people who went and there it was never quite clear like what exactly happened to them. And so the movie takes it in a direction, but it sent me, I don't often end up on research trails based on horror movies. This one sent me on a research trail.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned Blair Witch earlier.
Mm.
That was like a great indoctrination to this sort of like, oh my God, this could be real. Let's research it on the internet. Let's look at the local lore. Though Yellow Brick Road is like that, where like you just give me like a breadcrumb of something that might be real that I can investigate. That just that does it for me. You know, it doesn't do it for me. We did put this in our notes. Fucking zombie and apocalyptic horror in addition to torture porn doesn't do it for me. Like the scenarios of like, oh, it's not really the zombies that are hurting us, it's like human nature. Okay, thanks. Got it the first 700 times.
Got it, because my TV has the news. It's too on the nose for me.
Much respect to the late great George Romero. Return of the Living Dead, that's a bomb ass movie. There's really great movies within the genre. I remember the Dawn of the Dead remake is even excellent. That was the first R-rated film that I could go see without.
And fun music, if I remember correctly.
You're right, and there was a zombie baby in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking metal. I liked it.
And if you don't like zombie movies, but you love the idea of this like ethereal contagion, Pontypool, totally out of left field, but go watch Pontypool, very fun.
See, again, like there's individual films that I will give a pass to, and there's probably even, I know for a fact, especially if we get into French horror, that there's some movies that might qualify as torture porn that I would be like, I give that one a pass though. That one has merit. And like I understand at the same time, like the same thing that I would say about zombie films, people could criticize and be like, well, all the Jason movies are the same. They're like, what's the value that you're getting out of those? I'm like, no, I get it. It's just because I like those, and some people like their zombie and apocalypse horror. That's just not on brand for me.
For me, the zombie stuff, it's too on the nose, and the torture porn is like the lowest common denominator of like, of course I'm scared of horrific things happening to somebody's body. I don't feel like you had to think about that one too much.
You also like you avoid the like home invasion type movies.
Oh, yes. Because I have no desire to live the experience of someone else possibly failing at protecting themselves in those scenarios. When I think about what would happen if somebody entered my home, my brain goes, we win. And then that's it. And I don't think about it beyond that. I'm like, success. And I just like, I don't want, this is my sanctuary. I don't like to imagine it. I don't like to go into the scenarios. No, thank you. Plus, it just like, it feels so, like it feels like a direct attack on family, and like y'all know by now that I'm a Cancer sign. Like, no, thank you.
I would have to agree on most of them. There's a lot of them that are just too hard to watch, like where they're kind of torturing families and things like that. Where it's too much like, again, like real events. On the flip side, I will definitely watch movies like The Purge because it's kind of redonkulous. I will watch movies like I think The Strangers and even The Strangers Pray at Night were good movies because they're not they are fucking with you, but they're not as long and drawn out with like the sadistic elements that take it to that other level.
I was able to watch The Strangers, and the other one that I was able to watch, and I'm blanking, I want to say it was called Quiet. Hush.
Kate Siegel.
Yes. So yeah, there's passes in that genre too for me. I think it's the slow torture of people that just I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, there's a certain level where we've gone beyond the comfort zone. And I think that's an important lesson, whether it's, let's bring it all home, right? Like whether it's watching horror movies, whether it's taking in the news, whether it's diving deep into your inner shadows or your traumatic past, everyone has a limit. You have boundaries. It doesn't mean that you can't ever go there. I do think part of some of the stuff that we talked about at the top of the episode with the weather, the transits, the astrology that's happening is about going deep, is about uncovering those things that we'd rather not look at. But yeah, do it with tenderness, do it with self-care, do it recognizing that none of us are superheroes. We're all just trying out here. Do it with love, TLC. And if it's too much, pause, do something nice, do something that fills you with joy, cope. It's okay to cope. It's okay to say, I can't tolerate that right now. I can't do that today. It's okay to admit that and try again tomorrow. Do your best.
Yeah, there's no moral judgment attached to the methods that suit your needs for moving through moments where our bodies are battlegrounds right now, our schools are battlegrounds, we have very real and very live battlegrounds in the world. It's just such a tough moment. And for Wendy and I, often to heal, we jam certain keys down because we need to feel it and really feel it so that it can move through. But that might not be your method, and we respect that too. So no judgment as to how you move through these moments. Please do hold on to truth in yourself, with your loved ones, and be very vigilant about the information that is sending you spinning. If it's true and it just is one of those unfortunate facts of life, move through it the way we've been talking about. Maybe set it aside if you just need to set it aside. But this moment is really calling us toward some painful observations about where we've gotten ourselves. And I feel like I'm using all these vague terms because I just don't want to fucking say that we had another school shooting or that Roe v. Wade is under attack or any of the other things that are happening right now. There's love here. We care about you. We want you living your best life. We're doing our very best to make this an uplifting place where you can kind of relax and take a break from what's happening. And I hope this episode did that for you.
Did it for me a little bit.
Yeah, I feel a little lighter now. That was really helpful.
Yay. Enjoy your weekend, whenever you're listening to this, whatever you're going through. And the advice is always the same: to whatever you're trying to get through, figure out, however you're trying to make yourself feel good. It's always about finding who you are
and do it on purpose.
That's right. We love you. Mwah.